Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get started. Could I ask you to take your seats, please? Yeah, exactly. A clap. Clapping works sometimes. I'm Robin Niblett. Hello. I met many of you yesterday, but Stefan, who is nothing if not extremely organized, asked me to reintroduce everything again today because some people were not here yesterday. So welcome back to the second day of our annual Gender and Growth Policy Forum. Thrilled to have you back here again. We've got a very packed day. As we had a packed afternoon yesterday, we've got a packed day as well today. So I want to make sure that we get the most out of it. Oh, we're running maybe 10 minutes behind at the beginning. But, you know, we started 15 minutes late, I think, yesterday, and he's kept the 15 minutes all the way through the day. So that is a type of timeliness, I think. Just to remind you, keep your mobile phones on silent, but on, because we do want you to be able to share what you're hearing today with all of your colleagues and networks via social media and others. This is taking place at Chatham House, but it's not under the Chatham House rule, as I think you all know. It's a public event. We want to get the ideas and conversation out, and it is being live streamed therefore as well. So welcome to any of you watching through live stream today. Helping us a bit with the social media, Donetta Campbell, Elizabeth Eisel, who I think you will have met yesterday. My colleague Tom Farrar is around now and again. You can draw on him as well. The hashtag is up there somewhere. Hashtag CH Shaping the Future tends to pop up very quickly once you've used it a couple of times. I forgot to mention yesterday that in your programs, as well as the bios, is the Wi-Fi sign-in information. Blue programs, there are some more at the back if you're lacking them. But that is rather important, otherwise you can't do any of the stuff I said at the beginning. And if you have any questions, Stefan, her other colleagues, my colleagues here at Chatham House are wearing the red lanyards, except for me, because I haven't put mine on. So, another point, just to remind you all, you know, this is, as you've seen from the agenda, you are all bringing your insights to this forum. It is a forum rather than a conference. So, yes, by all means ask questions, but also share comments when you engage with the panels, but please be succinct so we can get as much and as many viewpoints as possible. And final point, we at Chatham House can't do any of our work without the support of our various supporters, sponsors, etc. We are a private institute that is not subsidized by the British government and doesn't sit on some wonderful, huge, historic amount of money. So we are very grateful always to foundations, companies, individuals, and others who are able to support us, governments included, for projects. But our strategic supporter for this and our strategic sponsor for a number of years now has been EY. So a big thanks to EY for having both helped us kick off this forum and sustain it over all these years, and our forum partners, McKinsey & Co., MasterCard, the Freedom Fund, and Asia Foundation. And a special call out again to Getty Images. Rebecca and her team have laid out this great set of images. You will have seen them if you were here yesterday. They've sort of taken over parts of Chatham House. Some of the black and white photos of speakers here have been replaced by, I think, a really fascinating set of images that are very much at the core of the theme of this conference, thinking beyond stereotypes as well. And thinking beyond stereotypes is a perfect segue through to the opening session we're going to be having. And I'm going to be asking a video to go up in a second. So just warning my colleagues sitting behind the dark screen there that I'm going to ask you to run a video in a minute. But I will be introducing you shortly to Gorkan Amitoglu, who is an expert in psychological profiling, done a lot of work with the private sector, but also governments and other groups. I'll be introducing him properly in a minute, but we thought it'd be a really interesting idea to share with you some work that he's undertaken as part of Unilever's Unstereotype initiative. That'll give you a clue in itself what this video is about. It'll help set up, I think, a little bit our conversation, and it's great to have you with us, Gorkan. But first, we're going to just watch a quick 2-3 minute video. It'll kick off our conversation. Video run now, please.
With this project, we are giving an opportunity to our marketeers to have a moment of self-discovery.
Hey, Daddy-O. I just got my results for the DNA. Do you want to hear about it?
Mom, what did you do?
This unstereotype experiment is not only about removing stereotypes from our advertising.
I think it's just groundbreaking for this industry.
It's an experiment that is going to unleash creativity.
We've learned to use stereotypes in order to simplify our world. You stereotype about someone's gender, ethnicity, age.
Everyone does it. It's very useful. But by using a stereotype about you, I'm essentially ignoring who you are as a human being.
Marketers and organizations do have a significant responsibility to change the negative stereotypes.
Because they're the ones who help shape cultural perceptions.
Hi, I'm Margarida. I'm Portuguese and I'm 26 years old.
Hi, my name is Luis Hernandez. I'm from Mexico originally.
Hi, I'm Christy Blaine, a group creative director at Mullen Lowe.
Hi, I'm Johnny Juarez.
Today, we're going to do a really exciting experiment. I'm going to find out my DNA history, my ancestry.
This is an exciting time. We'll figure out what we don't know.
Through the DNA reveal, through the self-awareness that they will be getting, and through the scientific tools that we will be giving them in terms of how to unstereotype, we aim to prove statistically that a change in their stereotypical thinking and their creativity has actually occurred.
Most people are very resistant to the idea that they stereotype. So we thought that it would be interesting to get them to start seeing the world differently, starting with themselves.
The unexpected part was 8% Basque, which I think is kind of cool.
I'm 8% Middle East, North Africa, which is really exciting.
I am 3% Ashkenazi.
I found out that I'm not 100% American.
I mean, no one in my family has ever talked about any kind of Jewish heritage. I love that.
Hey, Daddy-O.
Hey, what's happening, my son?
Hello, did you see my DNA results? It's my younger brother.
We are 19% Asian. Northeast Asia.
Clearly something is going on with my family. I call my parents.
Who am I?
Mom, what did you do?
It shows that we're much more alike than we think we are.
We hope that if you've seen yourself differently, you'll be more willing to see other people differently. We've given them exercises that illustrate how their brains work, how they view the world, and how those views of the world can sometimes be inaccurate.
Hipsters look like this, they dress like this. Just like a hipster.
And how stereotypical thinking can restrict their creativity.
Okay, so 1 more minute, everyone.
My first view on stereotyping was like putting tags on people. But no, stereotyping is about a structure of thinking.
Stereotyping's not about casting. It's not just about the look of what you create, it's really about the whole process of creation.
It was very, very eye-opening. The decisions that you make don't only affect your clients, they affect humanity, and that's a great responsibility.
This experience is definitely a game changer. There are certain things that you need to really understand about yourself and about the process to make sure that you're not veering back into stereotypes and to deliver really exciting creative.
We've got lots of other clients, and very few of them are actively going out and trying to change this the way that Unilever are, and it's a privilege to be along for the journey with them.
If we can all come to work every day as human first and marketeers second, it's an amazing opportunity not only to do the right thing, but also to generate much better, bigger, and more creative ideas for our business.
Good, that deserves a clap. Gorkan, come up. So, Gorkan, I'm going to jump straight in so we can have a quick conversation if we have time for a couple of comments as well. But you know what a tight timeline we're on, and as I said, I think we're probably running 5-10 minutes late at least. Very interesting. Look, this is definitely not my field, very much your field. You've got Gorkan's bio in your packs there. Professor, as I said, of business psychology at USL, co-founder of Meta Profiling. But as somebody just even reacting to that video that you showed there, about stereotyping, somebody said, "Mum, what did you do?" Did anyone? I thought that was an interesting stereotype right there. Why wasn't it dad, you know, but never mind, or whichever father. So that was an interesting point. But there must be an instinct at some human level. We think of stereotyping as such a critical thing, but want to group ourselves. We want to belong. We want to know we belong to something. We'd like to define ourselves, I'd imagine, in some particular way. And then it's called stereotyping later on when it's turned into how you then use that sense of belonging for business and for trying to promote. So there's so many ways to unpack that short video. I suppose the simple question to start out for you is, what did you discover that you didn't expect to discover? What was a surprise to you, an expert in this field, from that particular exercise?
Well, luckily, we didn't have any major surprises in terms of the main hypothesis. So what we were hoping to get, we got. And I guess the only surprise I could say is that it actually worked where a lot of other initiatives don't work. So we know a lot of implicit bias training doesn't work. And I think this is the critical bit of the DNA test, essentially. The reason to why most implicit bias training doesn't work is because people don't go up to HR and say, can I get some implicit bias training because I think I'm biased? So people have to do that. Whereas here it's more voluntary. You get a DNA test. The aim is essentially to open up or challenge your identity, essentially, about who you think you are. If you can challenge your identity, then you can start challenging your perceptions about other people's identity and who other people are. And that's the main sort of reason to why we did the DNA test, so we can open up people to that, their perceptions about other people and the way they see things.
And so, just so we understand it, is it normally a process of self-stereotyping, if you see what I'm saying? Do people stereotype themselves and then have to break down their own identity? Is that what goes on in our minds, if you see what I'm saying?
Well, absolutely. I mean, stereotyping is essentially simplifying the world. If we didn't stereotype, the world would be a very difficult place. So you have a very strong stereotype about yourself, about who you are. This is what we call identity, right? So if you can challenge that stereotype, then suddenly you're far more open to challenging your stereotypes about others. And so we reinforce that in the workshop, essentially, which is we have a number of these stereotypes that we're probably not aware of, but we are constantly taking. And I should clarify that stereotyping is a process of thinking, and it doesn't have a balance of positivity or negativity, right? So it can be positive, it can be negative. I guess it's negative when we start stereotyping about particular groups, and which then affects their position in society, let's say. But you said, it was interesting, you said a 35% reduction, I think you said, in correct, yeah, stereotyping or self-stereotyping. How do you measure that against what do you mean by that? Sure, so we had a pre and post. So it was a proper experiment, which is why it might not have worked, essentially. Yeah. We did a pre-testing where we got marketeers to look at certain segmentation data, essentially, and say, how would you bring this to life into a marketing campaign? What would you say about these consumers? And we compared that to the general public's response. And the more similar you are to the general public, the more stereotypical you are. Right. And so those who went through the whole process of DNA testing and workshop then changed their stereotypical thinking in terms of marketing. We had a control group that did exactly the same but didn't go through the process, so pre and post, and we didn't see any change there. But so just on the, so you had an absolute good, because measurement is one of the issues we were discussing yesterday, we'll be discussing more today. You had a way of assessing the change. Obviously this was done with Unilever. How does this help? Because if you're a business, you almost want stereotypes, surely. You need to be able to market. You want to know there's a group. You almost want to play up to the biases, I would have thought, so you can segment your products in a particular way, know that by pressing certain buttons, you'll get certain types of responses. How is this helpful? I mean, there's a difference between segmentation, i.e. you sort of focus your product on a particular target. I think there's already an issue in there, right? So if we look at sort of marketing in general, probably segmentation is not always the best strategy. But I don't want to go into marketing strategy in itself, but already that is a problem in itself. But there is a whole different aspect to marketing, which is how do you present, what do you actually present as your output, your advertising. And there you don't have to be stereotypical. You could still target a particular group, but you sort of talk about their motivations or what they could be, their aspirations, rather than just sort of the stereotypical thing that we find in society. So rather than reinforcing society, you're breaking away from that. That in itself tends to be more creative. So less stereotypical advertising tends to be more creative, which means it grabs more attention and sticks in memory better, which is...
So you almost, you're then judging people by character rather than by the stereotype that might be connected to gender, race, ethnicity, or whatever.
Correct.
You can have people, I don't know, who are more outward going, more enclosed, if you see what I'm saying, as characters. You start playing around a whole different set of signals, correct?
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to come out for a couple of questions in 1 second, so get your questions ready. Yep.
That's exactly it. It's rather than sort of talking about social roles, what the role of women or men are, let's say, as an example, or you can say ethnicities or or age groups. You talk about what women's personalities are like, which are different to their social roles. Yeah. So just because women are in certain social roles doesn't mean that they want to be there. So if we sort of actually reflect what women want to be doing, yeah, then it's going to be connecting with them far better than saying this is your social role, yeah, and that's who you are, right?
Does anyone want to come in? I'm looking, Stefan's lurking on the side there, about to give me a kind of red marker in a second. Does anyone want to come in with a couple of just quick questions or thoughts just to engage you at this stage? Otherwise, I've got another question. Yeah, so 2 hands up over there. Oh, God. Right. 2 hands there. Just quick comment or point, and we'll take one back there in a second.
So, Leslie Batchelor, Institute of Export and International Trade, and I'm just thinking about how we use this so heavily in international trade, the stereotyping about nationalities and the traits we see in nationalities. And although I love the idea of unstereotyping, I'm not quite sure how that mixes in with business.
Right. So it may not be helpful, even though it might be true. Yeah,
but I'm not quite sure about marketing and business.
Exactly. So pass the microphone, just person behind. Yep, let him. Oh, yep. Thanks.
Yeah. Hi. I was just wondering how you mentioned ageing, I think, or age groups just now, and I just wondered how that was factored into the workshop. Obviously, DNA won't cover that, so I wondered what exercises were done to challenge people's perceptions of age.
And there was a question somewhere back. Someone had the hand back there. Yeah.
Hi, Stephanie Einan from the British Standards Institution. I was quite fascinated by the idea, if I understood correctly, that stereotyping is neither inherently negative nor positive. And I was wondering if there are any examples you can give where stereotyping has led to a positive perception or a positive outcome for a particular group that has been characterized, because my personal experience has been that it's almost always derogatory or negative. I can't think of any examples where it's been positive, so I'd be quite interested to hear more about that.
Okay, last point at the front here, very quickly, and then just pick up a couple of these ones. We'll come up over the course of the day. Hold microphone. Microphone.
I'm Sir Huang Poon from Manchester University. I can see the great potential. You talk about biases, so I want to ask, as researchers, how do you catalogue the real traits of other people who are taking part? So it's very useful in, for example, people often say the victims of modern slavery are being treated badly in a sense because you stereotype, the colored, and, you presume result.
Okay. Look, I don't expect you to answer all of these perfectly, but we're in the last minute or two. Just, you've got a flavor of some of the questions, which is probably helpful as well. Which ones do you want to pick up? Using trade, cataloguing, not inherited, an example of positive versus negative. I thought it was a very interesting question.
I hate this because I'd like to answer all of the questions. So
do them quickly then.
Yeah, how is it good for business? I can find several examples. For instance, increasing diversity in the work in leadership, because, for instance, we have clear evidence that diversity is good, and that, for instance, females have let's say, almost a better personality makeup or a better leadership style than males, and that's totally not reflected in business, right? So the evidence.
That's a positive stereotype I just heard there. But carry on.
So the evidence, you know, in terms of what are the traits of females versus males, versus what are the status of females, they are not compatible. So that's one example. The second question was about...
How are you challenging perceptions of aging?
Aging, good, because that was on my list of questions, exactly.
Yeah, it's the same process. So you know, this was not about gender, by the way. So stereotypes, you have stereotypes about a number of different things. It's not about gender. So we are challenging the stereotypical thinking. So identity was ethnicity. So we weren't, you said, I mean, that's not exactly gender, but we are seeing sort of, you can focus on these things, although your focus in the workshop, let's say, would have to be on a particular. But I think the main thing is awareness of your stereotypical thinking, and that's the fundamental thing. If you're aware that you're stereotyping in general, then that sort of gets you to ask things twice. But it's quite difficult, you know. We are just sort of human beings, and we have to stereotype.
Use in trade. Any comment about that on trade?
Trade.
Don't worry, think about that one.
Yeah.
Last example, because we've got to keep going. The one about, have you found any inherently positive examples of stereotyping where it's helpful?
No, that's just what you do all the time. If you were trying to find out the real human being behind every person you meet without stereotyping, honestly, you wouldn't be able to walk out this room for a few weeks. You know, so you just have to do it. This is what we mean by it's positive. It's not sort of, it's
not morally positive.
It's just making associations about how human beings are likely to behave, right? When it's negatives, you have negative associations about women's role in society or whether they're suitable for leadership. That's when it's negative. Actually, I think, I'm not sure about this, but I think potentially the negative stereotypes are smaller in terms of percentage, right? Because we constantly stereotype. But those negative stereotypes is what affects society in a negative way.
Gorkan, we said 20 minutes. We've taken the full 20 minutes, and we are, as I thought, running 10 minutes late as a result. So I'd say thank you very much for kicking us off with a real sort of brain teaser at the moment. People will be following your research, I think, that a little bit more closely, and you'll be able to find out more about his work, obviously, through our program. But please, very strong hand for Gorkan, and I'm going to invite the next panel up. Thank you very much. Thank you. So Stefan is miraculously going to show us how many of our panel have turned up. Will be an interesting thing as well, because I think we've had... I know, I said it. I know. This is the big shock. So I'll sit at the end. Yep. Is it? Are we 5? Everyone's here, right? Okay.
No, we're missing Peggy, but Peggy will arrive.
Okay. I think I need to invite Gala, Megan, Stephanie up, and Gala, you're here. Megan, you're here. And that means that Stephanie is there. Yeah, come in one, Stephanie. Yeah, that's right. And then Peggy, I think, is running late. One of them's on the northern line, apparently. Oh, you made it.
I made it.
Impressive.
Terrible.